The skill we have chosen for our training project is the drop punt. The drop punt is a primary means of moving the football around the field within Australian rules football and can exemplify superior accuracy, power and distance if performed correctly.
In terms of skill classification within the one-dimensional skill classification, we believe it is an open skill due to the fact that during a game of football, the environmental conditions decide when the drop punt is performed. We believe it is a distinct skill as there is a definitive start and end to the kick, and it is a gross motor skill as it uses large primary musculature such as the quadriceps and hamstrings to generate power. In terms of Gentile's two-dimensional taxonomy, this motor skill is considered a 4D skill, as there is object manipulation when the ball is dropped to the foot, body transport during a game of AFL, and the skill is performed in motion. There is strong inter-trial variability as well as the changing environment. This can affect the speed and performance of the drop punt.
We have identified 6 distinct sections of the drop punt. This includes finger placement along the seam, ball drop onto the foot, the backswing of the dominant leg, the forward swing, ball contact, and the follow-through phase. A balanced approach is important to increase accuracy of the kick, creating momentum through the kick. Notice during the ball drop phase, the opposite arm is raised for added balance and the ball is guided nicely up onto the boot. Ball contact should be sweet, kicking along the seam just behind the point of the ball, creating the ball to spin backwards. During the follow-through phase, the toe should be pointed at the target before landing on the kicking foot. The drop punt is used for accuracy over short and long distances. The following is a video of an AFL player kicking a set shot.
Dreams of this opportunity. Lloyd from 45 to win the game. He's got it. The Tigers have won by a point. A kick after the siren.
Looking at Fitz's 3 stages of learning, we envisage that the subject will be within the cognitive stage of learning, as there will be large errors but also large increases in performance. We determine that the individual will understand the nature of the skill via observation, trial and error, as well as sensory and verbal feedback. Following the 4-week training program, we hope to progress the participant well into the associative stage of learning, with a long-term goal of reaching the autonomous stage.
The goal of our subject during the 4-week program was to increase their kicking style and accuracy. As a measurement of performance, the individual performed 6 shots at goal from 30 metres out from 3 different angles. They were allowed 6 shots from this position, and during the pre-test, our subject attained a score of 2 out of 6 goals. The aim was to increase this, and in terms of qualitative analysis, our subject showed an inability to perform a task consistently. 4 of the shots missed the target and did not spin correctly. He looked uncomfortable kicking and unbalanced.
Week 1 of our program will focus on the basic segments of the drop punt. As the learner is a novice at the drop punt, we will be reducing the degrees of freedom within the skill. According to the attentional hypothesis theory, we can only focus on a certain number of elements at a time. Since this is a new motor skill for the individual, we have decided for the first week to begin with part practice, breaking our training to separate elements of the drop punt such as hand placement, kicking style and ball handling. This is to ensure the learner is not overloaded with information.
During week 2 of the training program, the aim of the subject was to increase the accuracy of the ball drop, hence changing to the tennis ball, which requires more precision. We've moved to whole practice as the individual showed evidence of increase in performance with each part of the drop punt in week 1. Our second drill was to perform a stationary kick, showing evidence of this whole part practice. Our final drill for the week was to perform a walking kick to a target. This increases the degrees of freedom and difficulty of the kicks in hoping of augmenting the transfer to real-world football.
In week 3 of the training program, we continued to increase the difficulty of the drop punt in preparation to stimulate gameplay. A drill we performed was kicking on the jog at a range of 25 metres. This is at a moderate intensity which requires greater levels of stabilisation and execution. The second drill was marking kicking to a moving target. The movement of the target was to replicate leading patterns during the game and create the need for the kicker to be aware of his surroundings, changing the angle and distance of each kick.
Week 4 of the training program had the goal of incorporating the drop punt with pressure from another individual. This is the highest transfer to real life football scenarios, as pressure from opponents occurs often and increases the effort of the kick as time pressures, visual distraction and external pressure are present. This will allow for us to see whether the individual can execute the skill as well under pressure. The drills include picking up the ball and kicking a goal with pressure and set shots under pressure.
Practice variability and specificity contributed to positive post-testing results. Practice variability for the learner is a key predictor of success in future test situations. We included practice variability in our program, including the skill variations, the physical context in which the skill is performed, and the situation in which the skill occurs. Specificity relates to how the drill relates to the game. It is important to have strong correlation between training and skill performance so that there is a strong positive transfer from practice to play.
Looking at the post-test, in terms of quantitative analysis, our participant looked more comfortable and balanced with the ball spinning correctly. In terms of qualitative analysis, he acquired 5 out of the 6 shots, showing an increase in accuracy and the demonstration of skill acquirement.
There was evident improvement from pre-testing scores, increasing kicking accuracy by 33% and having a smoother and more penetrating kick. Demonstrations, verbal instructions and simple verbal cues such as point your toe and kick through the seam had large effect on the learner, helping to retain more information and emphasise key movement patterns.
In order to see the progression of skill acquisition, we performed 2 tests. A retention test, which was decided on 2 weeks post the 4-week training program. This was to determine how much knowledge was retained of the level of performance after a time period of abandonment. If the level of performance achieved was due to learning, then it will be reproduced following the retention test. We aim to see a linear performance curve where there is proportional increases in performance over time. The other test was a transfer test, which was decided on an NFL punt kick. This is to determine whether we will see a positive transfer of skill acquisition. Transfer tests assess the adaptability of performance changes related to learning. Augmented feedback can be seen as performance-related information added to or enhancing task extrinsic feedback. Task extrinsic feedback is the sensory perceptual information that is an expected part of performing a skill. Augmented feedback can be during or following the skill performance, coined concurrent or terminal feedback respectively. Augmented feedback can be split into knowledge of results, that is, the ball was 4 metres too far to the left, and the knowledge of performance. For example, your hand was not correctly positioned on the seam of the football. Both are useful and will aid our subject in skill acquisition.